Hey everybody, I'm Connor, that's Doug, and this is the Bethel School District Presents podcast, and we have a very special guest today. Joining us today is Catherine G. Johnson Elementary School teacher Lindsay Smolko, and Lindsay just got back from an amazing 2-week trip to Washington, D.C. She was one of just 32 teachers from around the country selected to take part in the Smithsonian Teacher Innovator Institute. So first, Lindsay, can you tell us a little bit about what the Institute is and how you got involved with it?
Sure. The Institute started in 2018, and it was sort of the brainchild of a woman named Shannon Baldioli, who is an educator, museum director educator at the Smithsonian, specifically the National Air and Space Museum. And she just had this brainchild of educating teachers who were already passionate about STEAM education in particular, innovative teaching, inquiry-based instruction, things like that, and bringing them to a central location where we could all vibe off of each other and feel like, okay, we're not weirdos in our own places. There are others who think like us, and how can we capitalize on that? So it started then, and it started with, I think, about 18 teachers, and then it had sort of a break during COVID, of course. And so now we're in 2024. We have had about, I want to say, they've done the math where they have figured out how many students these teachers have affected or reached into their lives. And it's in the tens of thousands at this point already. Wow. So yeah, it's pretty impactful.
That's fantastic. How did you learn about the program? And then I understand, 32 teachers from around the country, very selective program. What was the process like of getting that invite?
Okay, so as I recall, I got in on my second application. So I tried 2 years ago. I just saw an ad on Facebook, and, the algorithm led me to it essentially. And I said, well, that sounds really cool. And I read about it on their website, and it said all expenses paid, 2 summers of 2 weeks in DC, plus financial support for your classroom and conferences and all these opportunities. And I said, well, shoot, let's just go for it. So you had to submit a 3-minute video. You had to submit what's called a professional growth plan. So talking about what are your goals for you as an individual teacher, what are your goals for then taking that to your school and then to your broader community. And over kind of our 2.5-3 year journey with TII, that's the goal. Is that this summer we worked on ourselves. Then we're over the course of this year, branching out into how do we expand that into our school and hopefully ideally beyond that into the rest of our district community and just cities and towns, et cetera. So I submitted the video, the PGP, and also some essay questions, and then you had to submit 3 letters of reference. So someone at the district level, a colleague, and then a parent or student. So I had all of those done, turned them in. First time, wasn't good enough. They said, tell us more about this STEAM Fest that you do. We want to know more about that. And that's an event that I put on at KGJ with the help of my staff and community, PTA especially. And so I said, okay, well, that'll be the focus of next year. So I took a ton of videos and photos the previous year, and then it worked this time. And yeah, so out of about 800 people who applied, there were 32 of us who went, 2 from Washington State.
That's amazing. Well, we will talk a little travel later in the show because you got to see some things that folks around here don't get to see going to the East Coast in Washington, D.C. But you did go there for training and science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. STEAM is a big part of that. And I think that would lend itself to some pretty fun training. Tell us about some of the hands-on stuff that you got to do there.
For the 2 weeks that I was there, it equated to 80 hours of professional development. And I'm not lying when I say that every single second of it was valuable. It even got to the second Wednesday where I walked in and I was still excited to be there, but starting to feel tired. And I literally felt like, I don't think I can get another thing in my brain. I believe in growth mindset, but I think that's it. The things popping up with you need to buy more storage, the whole 9 yards. And so while I couldn't delete video and photos from my brain, I did decide, okay, I'm just going to commit to relying on the slides later. I'll take notes. But yeah, it got to the point of I'm just so full of good stuff. A huge part of it was increasing our knowledge and use of technology in the classroom. And I taught 5th grade for a long time, and then I decided at Shiny Mountain that I wanted to turn the art program into a STEAM program, and so I got my arts endorsement and did that, and then came to KGJ and wanted to do more tech, more engineering. The engineering part, I could kind of get the wheels under me pretty quickly, but the tech was a little slower for me to adjust to and learn, so this was awesome, because there were teachers there who never do art, but are really high-level coding instructors, engineering instructors at the secondary level, so I kind of sat back and just learned by observation for a while. But one of the things we kept coming back to were these things called microbits, which are handheld size processors, little tiny motherboards. And from there, you can connect those to all different kinds of programs like little bits or these things called hummingbird kits. And you can get things to move and light up and make sound. And even in these microbits, you can attach other things to them that very quickly have altimeters, humidity sensors. They can gauge speed and things like that. So there's endless opportunities for taking things that we do every day or every year in our classroom. Think of things like rocket launches or egg drops or things like that. And then you attach one of these microbits to it. Now you can collect data and plug that into your computer. So teaching young kids early on about data and how important that is and how to adjust scientifically as opposed to just, well, that didn't look as good as or as cool as I wanted it to. Let's try it again. So yeah, a lot of technology, a lot of coding, and that was very new and exciting, but also exhausting.
So that sounds like some amazing high-tech stuff. I understand you actually have some other really cool things that you're going to bring back, including 3D printers, merge cubes, and some cool new AI tools. Can you tell us a little bit more about the tech you're bringing back to your kids here?
Yeah, so merge cubes are these little tiny handheld black cubes that look very high-tech. They're just made out of solid foam, but they're augmented reality cubes. So there are different apps that then you can use. So our students with their one-to-one iPads can use these. Let's say they're studying the biology of a frog, or you're teaching them about the hippocampus and the parts of the brain and talking about their cell instruction. They can look at a model. They hold this cube in their hand, look at it through their iPad, and they now have a 3D model of whatever it is they're studying. It just makes things kind of come alive. I'm a very hands-on kinesthetic learner. You can see I'm talking with my hands. I have to be touching things, and I'll say, let me see that. And what I mean is the eyeballs and the ends of my fingers. Let me hold that. Let me touch it. Let me experience it, and I'm much more likely to learn it. So I definitely love the opportunity to bring that to my classroom, to my students who are much the same. AI is something that I think a lot of people are still intimidated by. I know that even just a couple years ago when we started hearing the buzzword of AI, teachers felt like it was a threat to, teaching students how to write essays, for example. I remember that kept coming up. Oh, they're just going to write their essays with AI. I think of AI tools as like a calculator. Kids would ask us all the times, well, why do I need to know how to do this math? I'm just going to have a calculator. I have a calculator in my pocket on my cell phone all the time. And you tell the students, well, yeah, but you have to know, what are you going to plug into that calculator? Then you have to have the mathematical understanding to recognize, is that a rational answer that I'm getting back? And I think AI tools are the same way. You have to know what to plug into it. And then when it spits out what it does, to look at that and analyze it for correctness. It will lie to us because it's just pulling things out from the ether. So it will make up sources. You have to check those sources. You have to just use what you really do know to validate what the AI is giving you. So it's not to replace us, at least not yet, but it is definitely a very cool tool that I think a lot of teachers could benefit hugely from if they knew what it can do. I had it do frequently asked questions about the Teacher Innovator Institute. That's it. I plugged that in and it generated a whole thing with answers. Then I've had it do unit plans and just sort of see what that looks like and then go back in. Rubrics, which I know is a big thing the secondary level is being encouraged to do now with standards-based grading. Using these AI tools is a massive advantage to supporting our day-to-day menial stuff so that we can use our brain power and our higher level thinking for the more creative tasks and student face time.
Doug, do we have budget to get a couple merge cubes for the pod?
Just come try them. I'll show you. I got 3 now.
Well, I can just tell from the excitement and definitely the hand motions that you had a fantastic time. You soaked up a lot, obviously. And when your hands were moving around, I saw a new tattoo on your elbow, and I'm curious in that you told us about it already, but
yeah.
Tell us about this tattoo. You weren't the only one that got one.
I am
and
not.
It's part of what you called in your email to us initially a life-changing trip.
It was. It really was. So it wasn't my first tattoo, I'll be clear. Like, that's a huge move for people to make. It was a weird thing. I had designed a tattoo while we were there. It was about Monday of the second week. And I decided, yeah, if there's time, if there's a way, I would love to get this tattoo. So then flash forward a couple days later, that Wednesday when I was feeling like my brain was super, super full. And at that point, last year's cohort had arrived on Monday. So that's how it works. The new cohort comes for the first week. The second week, you are there with last year's cohort. So there's about 65, 70 of us, and then they'll stay on for their second week of that summer. So I'm sitting in this room with some new people around me, and I overheard someone say, yeah, we're supposed to get tattoos, but there was 3 of us, and one of us dropped out, and so I don't know if we're going to do it anymore. And I said, you guys are going to get tattoos? And it was this man named Willard, and he goes, yeah, but I don't know. And I said, I want a tattoo. And I go, what are you going to get? And he showed me on his phone his design, and it was almost identical to mine. Mine was the inverse. So we ended up going with his, but mine was the inverse. So everywhere where mine is black, it was white with just outlined in black.
Love it. So describe for our listeners who aren't able to see through their microphones
so it is,
what the tattoo looks like.
It is about a $50 size, and it is the Smithsonian symbol of the sun. And then on the inside is the NASM. We call it NASM, National Air and Space Museum rocket, designed from their logo that is in the center of that. So sort of cross-cutting that Smithsonian sun.
You were nonstop, so 80 hours of learning over 2 weeks, and then it sounds like you filled in all the other hours.
Every second after. I've never slept better in my life. And we slept on twin mattresses at American University. We slept in a dorm.
Oh, wow.
That was our housing. And I came home, and then my back started hurting at home, and I was like, I think something's wrong with our mattress. I'm like, I slept better on a twin mattress in a dorm. And my husband, justified it with reasonably so. Well, you were exhausted. You had no choice but to rest. So it's true. Yeah. Every second of the evening, we would stay up super, super late. It was just like being freshmen in college again, new friends, new exciting things, no other obligations but this experience. So we maximized it. We capitalized on it. It was awesome.
Oh, and another fun thing you got to do that not everyone gets to do is you got to tour the White House, and you didn't get to meet the president. He was recovering from COVID, but it sounds like you did get to talk to some other White House staffers. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, surprisingly. So it can be kind of a nervous personality, especially when it comes to like rule following. I'm a big rule follower, and I don't want to get in trouble, especially with things like the Secret Service. So it's kind of an arduous process to get through all these different steps of security. But I'm also, in my nervousness, I make jokes, which is wholly inappropriate, but I always do. And they were laughing back, and it was like better than the TSA. The TSA never thinks anything I say is funny, but the Secret Service was getting it. So then we got in there, and they were wonderful. They're tour guides. I mean, essentially, they're there all the time, so they hear and see everything. You could ask them questions about anything, and they just give you a straight answer about stuff. And that was really neat to walk through places that the very next day I saw photos of Kamala and Joe having walked through there recently, too. So that was... I say their first names like I know them.
You know them.
But Biden and Harris. Yeah. And that was pretty special. So that felt cool. There's cool artwork in the White House that I didn't know about. One of my favorite artists is Jacob Lawrence, and so I got to see 6 inches away from my face a Jacob Lawrence original, and very famous oil paintings throughout time, and the dining room, and all these places that you see on movies and TV shows and hear about and actually get to be in there felt really special.
Yeah, it's really like a living museum, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's funny, they have this whole squad that will come in and just set it up to look like a tour, and then they take it all back, roll back the carpets, take away the red ropes, and now it's a living facility again. It's a place where people come to visit, dignitaries, et cetera. So that was neat. Lots and lots of museums. The Smithsonian has multiple museums, and not a lot of people know that. So it's not just the Museum of Natural History, which we spent a lot of time at, or the National Air and Space Museums, of which there are 2. But there's also the African American History Museum, the Holocaust History Museum, the Museum of the Native American Indian. These incredible places that we got to go. They're free. Like, you just get a timed entry ticket for $1 service charge on your phone, and you go. And I spent 6 hours my very first full day there at the African American History Museum and saw half of it. So That's at the top of my list next year, to go finish the African American History Museum. The Holocaust Museum was, as you can imagine, incredible, and in all the awful ways incredible, like just a really important thing to go see and experience and learn about. And then there's a whole laundry list of things that I didn't yet get to do that I want to hit next year. So as much as I did do, there's still a ton more to do.
So we visit D.C. very differently. I actually grew up on the East Coast. And
okay.
I've been to D.C., many of the Smithsonians, but you went to museums to learn. I go to American history and I see Kermit the Frog and I leave happy.
Well, absolutely. And that's that's on the list. And a lot of my TI buddies went there, and I saw their pictures and stuff. So I'm definitely going to hit it. It's just hard to pick and choose. So my daughter had gone when she was at Bethel Middle School. She had done the D.C. trip when she was in 6th grade, and she said, make sure you go to the Holocaust Museum. That has to be first thing, and then some other memorials that she really liked. And so I went to those. The first full day I spent on the mall with a new friend of mine who teaches in Idaho. We went and saw all of the war memorials. I had just read Kristen Hanna's The Women and stumbled upon the statue in honor of the nurses in Vietnam, which that story is based on. So that was cool. Yeah, so I'm counting days till the next one. I can't wait to go back.
What an amazing trip. I've lived, like I said, near D.C. for 10 years, and you did more in 2 weeks than I think I did in the entire decade. So kudos to you. Amazing trip,
awesome.
and you brought home a lot of great stuff for the students at Catherine G. Johnson Elementary. We're excited for them as the school year is underway now.
Well, thank you once again to Catherine G. Johnson Elementary School teacher Lindsay Smokle for sharing those amazing stories about your trip. Can't wait to hear how next year's 2-week trip goes, and we will see you all again next week.